Hello friends, today I am going to make a comparative study of the literary theorizings of two eminent critics, eminent English critic I.A.Richards and a critic of the same stature, the eminent Sanskrit critic Anandvardhan. If we throw a cursory glance over the literary theorizings of the two critics, it appears that they represented two entirely widely different schools of thoughts. And besides that, they represented entirely different period of time. Whereas Anandvardhan belonged to the 9th century, I.A.Richards' period is 20th century. So there is a wide gap between the periods of the two critics, and therefore the question of the two critics sharing some common views, or the two critics reaching an understanding on certain issues hardly crop up to our mind. But if we throw a cursory glance over the critical theorizing of the two critics, we come to the conclusion that despite all these differences, there are certain issues on which they seem to reach an understanding which cannot be ruled out completely. Actually, Richards' theory criticism is double-edged. It is partly semantic, touching upon the theory of meaning, and partly axiological, touching upon the theory of value. In his books, Speculative Instruments, Foundation of Aesthetics, Meaning of Meaning, Principles of Literary Criticism, Practical Criticism, and Philosophy of Rhetorics, he has repeatedly laid emphasis on these two approaches to criticism, for which he was accorded high accolades in the literary horizons. In his book, Principles of Literary Criticism, elaborately discuss the theory of dichotomy of meaning or twin function of meaning, making two categories of meaning, scientific meaning and emotive meaning, whereas the former is used in the realm of scientific discourse, the latter touches upon poetic discussion, or the latter is used for poetic discussion. He has laid more emphasis on emotive meaning because it incorporates metaphorical expressions well within in its ambit. In his book Philosophy of Rhetoric, he has made it clear that metaphor is the omnipresent principle of life. He has further added that a command over metaphor is a command over life. He is of the opinion that metaphor is no longer remains a figure of speech, rather it becomes it is used for in our common day-to-day life, and that's why it acquires a special significance. For example, when we say that he is in deep sorrow, here the word deep is metaphorical expression for ocean. So in this way, he has paid more emphasis. He has given a special attention to emotive meaning, in the sense that it is metaphorical and it acquires a special attention, and for which it should be accepted for the expression of a it should be accepted for poetic expression. In his book Philosophy of Rhetoric, he has further added that he has just supplied the theory of interanimation of words or poetry. In poetry, he is of the opinion that the meaning of a word is derived from the word which is used before it and the word which is used afterward. The words or poetry. In poetry, he is of the opinion that the meaning of a word is derived from the word which is used before it and the word which is used afterward. The word is not a complete unit. It should not be taken into isolation. Rather, it should be taken as a web from which gets the fibers from different directions to provide it its meaning. In his book practical criticism, it has made 4 categories of words: sense, tone, feeling, and intention. Sense is a bold meaning or literal meaning. Tone is contemplation. Feeling is statement, and intention is the final meaning. In the same way, Anandvardhan in his book Vishnulok has made 3 categories of meaning, words: Avidha, Lakshana, and Vyanjana. Avidha is the literal meaning. For example, he is going to market. Lakshana is metaphorical meaning. For example, he is a pure gold. Here, when we say that here we are comparing man with gold. Actually, we don't say that the metallic quality have been incorporated to man. Rather, I want to suggest that by gold we want to suggest that he is a noble man. He is a good man. He is a noble man, and in this way the metaphorical word has been used. But the third and the more important one is Vyanjana, which is called suggestive meaning or pratiyaman. For example, when we say the sun is set, here the word sun is set acquires several meanings, incorporates several meanings within its ambit. For the boy who is going to school, when we use this word sun is set, it means that the time of his class is over. Now it is the time to winding up his business. But for prostitute, it acquires a different meaning. It means that his business is about to begin. So this word acquires different connotation, different meaning for different people in a different context. It can easily be understood through another expression. Suppose there is a forest, and in this forest a girl used to live in a cottage. His beloved very frequently used to pay a visit to the cottage. And the hermit was not in a position, was not ready to accept the relationship between the two, and he wanted to sever ties between the two, and he used to make a frequent visit to the cottage to see that the relationship between the two ran into a rough weather. And the girl was afraid or anxious over the behavior of the hermit, causing hindrance in making love with. Making hindrance in their love affair. And so once the hermit comes to the cottage, the girl says the hermit that you need not have any fear about paying a visit to my house, because the dog of which you are afraid of has been killed by the tiger. Actually, the hermit was afraid of the dog which was placed close to the cottage of the girl, and when the girl says that to the hermit that you no longer have any panic or fear of visiting my cottage because of the apprehension he is having with regard to the dog, since the dog has been killed by the tiger and now there is no problem before him. But here the girl is using in a different meaning. The entire connotation has been changed. When she says that when he says the hermit that you need not have any panic, any fear with the dog because it has been killed by the tiger, she wants to suggest that you should no longer pay a visit to the cottage, because a more dreaded enemy is there. The tiger is there. So if you pay a visit to the hermit, you will be killed by the tiger. So instead of keeping himself away, instead of just giving an instruction to the hermit to keep himself away from the cottage, she is using it in a different way. So that is called suggested meaning, or Vyanjana or Pratiyaman, which Anandvardhan has managed to state through his statement. So in this way, the intention the category of meaning made by I.A. Richards and the category of meaning made by Anandvardhan seem to have reached an understanding. There seems to be some sort of association between their categorization of meaning, or the categorization of meaning into scientific meaning and emotive meaning seems to have an understanding with the Indian critics. Even not only I.A. Richards, even more English and American new critics seem to have borrowed or seem to have come to a very close association with Indian critics. For example, Richards' ardent disciple William Emerson has shown a great association with Indian critic Kuntak. And the book Seven Types of Ambiguity, in which he has discussed the theory of ambiguity, seems to have a close association with Kuntak's book Vakrokti Jivitam, in which he has discussed the theory of Vakrokti. Although I will not pay more attention on this particular issue, because I will later on in the next video I will pay attention on these issues. But I am making a passing reference of the association of Indian critics with the Western critics, the Western English or British or American critics. And even American new critics have borrowed or immensely, or if not borrowed immensely, and have come very close to the Indian critics. For example, John Croranjam, he has discussed the theory of structure. He has made two categories of words, structure and texture. For him, structure is the ordinary, is the surface meaning, whereas texture is something more than that. In the same way, Alan Tate in his theory, in his book Tension in Poetry, he has discussed the theory of tension, and he is of the opinion that is a tension between intention and extension. And by tension he means the polarization of meaning. So there is a clash between the words, and the final meaning emerges out of the clash between the varied words. So the American new critics and even the Chicago critics like R.S. Crane and Winsberg and have also shown their association with the Indian critics. Even I.A. Richards has accepted in his letter that he has studied Anandvardhan's Dhvanyalok and its commentary Lochan, Dhvanyalok Lochan, written by Abhinav Gupta, the 10th century Sanskrit critic and philosopher critic, and he has also accepted to have gone through Panini's Astadhyay, the eminent grammarian. So, though finally he has also made it clear that though I don't claim to have read too much, but he has accepted that he has studied Dhvanyalok and its commentary Lochan by Abhinav Gupta and Panini's grammar. And if we pay a cursory glance over the books of I.A. Richards, the meaning of meaning, principles of literary criticism, philosophy of rhetoric, speculative instruments, and practical criticism, we come to the conclusion that somewhere or other, despite having differences, despite just propagating different ideologies, they seem to have an understanding. They seem to have reached an understanding, and these I.A. Richards has borrowed, or he has come very close to the critical theorizings of eminent Sanskrit critic Dhvanyalok. So with this, I wind up my lecture.